You pray so badly for heaven, knowing any day might be the day that you die. But maybe life on earth could be heaven. Doesn't just the thought of it make it worth a try?
We all remember what I said in my second video, right? About how nobody is responsible for curing our misery. Unfortunately, the same thing is true for our happiness as well. Both are part of the human experience, and both are part of accepting that, even when things aren't perfect, our mentality and our actions are what make our lives better than they otherwise might be. I believe it was Satan who said, in Paradise Lost, that the duty is ours to make a heaven of our hell. And while quoting the Prince of Darkness tends not to be the best idea, the sentiment is nevertheless true, as each of us are going to have both high and low moments, as well as hours of definition where we can either pursue our passions or let them pass us by. This echoes what I said in my last video, the quiet paradox in saying that good things come to those who wait. As even though patience is a virtue, if we hold our tongues forever, never taking the appropriate steps towards our future, what we want will never come. And on that front, I want to flash back to my time at Shawnee High School. We can all agree that grades are one of the most important parts of a young person's life, right? Grades, connections, and an understanding of the direction that the world is going are three very important factors in whether or not we're going to be able to create decades of happiness within our lives. Unfortunately, as all of us are likely acquainted, in order to create for ourselves something that wasn't there before, we are going to have to become uncomfortable. I don't have the numbers on me for when everyone else figured this out, but for me, it was my junior year of high school, when I made the jump from ACC English to AP. To that point, with a little help from my support system, I was coasting along pretty well, getting all A's and B's, not taking any risks that I didn't need to, and getting grades that satisfied both me and my parents. Unfortunately, once we reach a certain point where we become bored, good enough is no longer good enough. If we spend enough time in the same place, spinning our tires, and counting the hours until we get to go home and do what we actually want to do, chances are high that we aren't happy where we are. And as we become bored by our limitations, we seek greater highs. This is the psychological tick that facilitated my jump to advanced placement to begin with. Pride. A self-assurance that told me that, no matter the fight, I could handle it, as it was nothing that I hadn't faced before. At least, that's what I thought. But oh, how the monkey's paw curls. As I recall, my confidence in my English abilities was so great that I thought that I could take on any challenge before making the leap to AP. Just as pride is the undoing of Greek figures, however, I fell like Icarus, my wax wings melting as I flew too close to the sun. As a consequence of my confidence, I learned that I was outclassed both literally and metaphorically the day that I made the jump. As soon as I set foot in the room, I was greeted by 3 assignments that I was apparently supposed to do over the summer, including doing a close reading of 5 short stories of my choosing. I say apparently, as I was the only one in the room that hadn't gotten the memo, and while being given a 2-week extension to do the assignments was nice, it might as well have been as though I was taking AP Calculus at the same time, with the mental gymnastics that I was doing to try to figure out how to do what I had to do while keeping up with the rest of my workload. And even though I ended up managing to catch up over the coming weeks, despite my early confidence, the amount that I had to do, mixed in with the spotty scores that I had accumulated, AP English was starting to take its mental toll on me. Until mid-December, I had to stomach the uncharacteristic demerit that sat like a bubbling blister on my report card. I remember the feelings of inadequacy that had started to collect in my chest, as well as the defeated tone in my voice after one of my wrestling practices. as I somberly told my father that I wanted to drop back down to ACC only a few months into the year. His response to this is one that I didn't expect. As a matter of fact, it's one that I didn't even consider, as I didn't have much experience with it in the past. This beautiful little concept called self-advocacy. According to him, the solution was much easier than I was making it seem, as all I had to do was speak to my teacher and figure out how to pull my grades together from the mess that I had made. Admittedly, I had scoffed at this idea at first, as my young mind failed to see an avenue from a D to a B by the year's end. But I wasn't exactly left with an abundance of options either. Something told me that he wasn't going to let me drop the course so easily, which put me between a rock and a hard place. This sounds intimidating, and the situation might have been suffocating, but I had never quit on a class before. Not only that, but I'd endured quite a bit of stress to get to that point to begin with, and only one choice, finishing the course, would end up vindicating all the effort that I had put into that point. Fortunately, I had a couple people in my corner who were willing to help me when the road got rocky. Over the course of the next 7 months, I met with my AP English teacher every week to discuss papers that counted for a good chunk of my grade, having healthy exchanges and heeding her comments so that we could both slowly chip away at that demerit on my report card, as doing so would reflect positively on both of us. And even though it took 6 months of effort, after hours of convening and working tirelessly with my teacher, I brought my grade up from a loathsome D to a tolerable C. It was tolerable in the sense that it was an AP course, and my first ever one at that, but it was still bittersweet. Bittersweet it may have been, however, there's a lesson there within, that if we want to be happy in life, we have to take steps to make it ourselves, not being too ashamed to ask for help, because if we're left to our own devices, we may very well spiral out. I thought that the jump was me making my happiness, but little did I know that I had only put myself in the position to pursue it. Due to my actions, I knew what the pain of failure tasted like. Now, happiness and catharsis were something that I would have to fight to create. On one hand, congratulations are in order, as I succeeded in finding exactly the challenge that I was looking for. The downside, however, is that I stumbled blindly into a trap that would test my patience, my resolve, and my capacity for practicing a skill, which I am now promoting to all of you. Creating our own happiness. It's one thing to stumble into self-satisfaction. It's another to have the formula for others' happiness, as well as your own confidence, both of which are essential for turning happiness into a renewable resource. And what better proof of the actions that I undertook than being in an environment where I'd have to do it all over again, this time without parental oversight, or an IEP to make sure I didn't fall out of the bottom. This time, if I wanted something done, I'd have to take care of it all by myself. Mostly. While I can't speak for other people's education, there were definitely multiple times for me where I had to repeat the exact same steps that I'd learned from that fateful 3rd year of high school as a college student. I wrote multiple essays over my near half-decade at Seton Hall that required cooperation with my instructors. But one instance that sticks out in my mind came courtesy of my freshman year. It was our class's first paper as part of the honors colloquia, so we were still feeling our way through the darkness, figuring out not only what to do, but what the expectations of our teachers were. Some of my classmates with better sense than I did took the initiative to speak to our professor. In fact, according to the reports of someone who went to his counseling, he expected a much better turnout than he saw for the first paper that we did for honors. Even though we weren't being flippantly dismissive of his class, as we all did the assignment, we had all fallen short of our instructor's expectations, as we had failed to take the initiative that he had expected. Even though we didn't end up making this mistake again, we learned, both through his grading and his reaction, that if we don't seek his guidance, that it would be a long first year for us. As I probably should have anticipated, this wasn't the last time that I would need to discuss with my professors to pull me out of a hole or to help me with an assignment. That same freshman year, I had to meet with a tutor every Wednesday to catch up on Latin because just as I was in high school AP Lit, I was behind due to not knowing how behind I was. On day 1 of Latin 1, I was expected to know what the declensions were, I was supposed to know what the grammar rules were, and I was supposed to own a copy of Wheelock's Latin, none of which I did. So there was going to be a lot of work to do if I was going to catch up on where I was supposed to be for my language course for graduation. And even though I was behind, I wasn't scared. Instead, I was determined to make sure that I was going to my extra lessons with my after-hours tutor, attacking every meeting to make sure I did what I needed to get done. Even though I was behind, not only did I never get less than a B in college Latin, not only did I earn the praise of my peer tutor for my work ethic, but I had those damn declensions permanently burned into my brain beyond the boundaries of Seton Hall. This is hardly a comprehensive list, but it serves to show that investing energy into something that we're passionate about will largely be a determining factor in how far we go, even if our journey is difficult at first. Even though we may desire happiness, ambition is nothing without the will to see it through. As we live and breathe, we realize that what we put in is what we get out. Whether our skepticism is based on past results or not, the ones who are pessimistic about their chances will admit defeat before the first punch is thrown, ensuring that success is reserved for hypotheses of what could have been. I had no shortage of doubt whether I could weather the storm, but if we never find this belief within ourselves, and thus never raise our voices in response, then our quiet brilliance will forever be buried in the sands of time, forcing us to watch as others claim the brass ring that we mutter should have been ours. As scary as it seems, eventually, we are going to have to remove ourselves from our place of comfort. Because as I said in a previous video, that place has caused us to walk the path which has led us to our current discontentment. We are fully within our right to fold when the road gets tough. But if we don't take steps to secure our own future, then what we want will pass us by, just like the girl in my social studies class did last video. Whether removing ourselves from our state of comfort is our choice or not, doing so is a route that we are eventually going to have to take.